I wasn't supposed to be here. Hell, I wasn't even supposed to care. But there he was sitting alone at the far end of the reception hall, like the world had just spit him out and left him to rot, and I couldn't look away. The music thumped through the grand ballroom of the Fairmont in San Francisco, the kind of place where money dripped from the crystal chandeliers and laughter spilled like overpriced champagne. My brother, Adam, was holding court at the center of it all, basking in the glow of his new wife's smile, their perfect love story framed for Instagram and eternity. I'd sworn off this kind of scene years ago. Weddings were just pageantry to me now, forced smiles, fake promises, and the slow grind toward inevitable heartbreak. My last relationship had burned me so thoroughly I couldn't imagine ever stepping into that fire again. Love, to me, was nothing more than a slow, elegant way to ruin yourself. But then my gaze landed on him. He was half hidden behind a floral arrangement, nursing a glass of something amber, his dark hair falling into his eyes like he didn't care to be seen. His suit was slightly rumpled, like he'd been wearing it all day without the energy to fix it, and there was a bruise of exhaustion under his left eye. I should have looked away, but something about him, the way his fingers tightened around the glass, the quiet set of his jaw, the way his gaze kept drifting toward the dance floor and then retreating, hooked me like a moth to a flame. When our eyes met, it was only for a second, but it felt like a door had cracked open. I wandered toward the bar, pretending I needed another drink. The truth was, I needed an excuse to be closer. Not much of a dancer? I asked, sliding onto the stool next to him. He gave a humorless laugh. Not much of anything tonight. The air between us felt charged, but not in that easy, flirtatious way you might expect at a wedding. This was heavier, deeper. It was like standing on the edge of something dangerous. Family of the bride or groom? I asked. His lips twitched in a bitter, almost smile. Neither. He took a slow sip before adding, I was supposed to be the groom. The words landed like a thunderclap. I didn't speak right away. There was no clever comeback for that. Instead, I just let the silence hold us, the sound of the band swelling and dipping around the edges. He finally looked at me, his eyes a storm of grief and defiance. She called it off 2 weeks ago. Then my best friend, he stopped, jaw tightening. Let's just say I got an invitation to this wedding, and I came because I didn't know what else to do with myself. I felt something shift inside me. All my carefully built walls, the cynicism I'd worn like armor, cracked just enough to let his pain seep in. Why torture yourself like this? I asked quietly. He gave me a sharp glance. Why are you talking to me? I thought about that. Because I can't stop. It wasn't the kind of answer that made sense on paper. But in that moment, it felt truer than anything else I could have said. The night unfolded in pieces. A slow dance neither of us joined. The way his hand brushed mine when we reached for the same drink napkin. How he told me his name, Lucas, like he was giving me something dangerous to hold. We slipped outside after dinner, the California night cool and scented with the faint tang of the bay. The city lights shimmered beyond the hotel courtyard. Feels like we're hiding, I said. Maybe we are, he replied, eyes fixed on some point in the dark. I wanted to tell him that hiding wasn't always bad, that sometimes you needed a place away from the noise to breathe. Instead, I found myself watching the way the moonlight cut across his face, turning the hollows of his cheeks into shadows, his eyes into dark pools I could drown in. He told me about the night his engagement ended, how he'd walked into his apartment and found his fiancée in their bed with his best friend. How he'd felt like the floor had been ripped out from under him. How the weeks since had been a blur of avoiding people, avoiding mirrors, avoiding himself. And somehow, between the cigarette smoke curling in the air and the distant hum of the party, I told him about my own disaster, the boyfriend who'd sworn forever until the day he disappeared without explanation, leaving me with a ring I'd never given back and a fear I'd never shaken. It was strange how easy it felt to spill the worst parts of myself to him. Maybe because he already carried his own broken pieces. By the time we went back inside, the wedding was winding down. The dance floor was mostly empty, the bride and groom gone in a flurry of rice and sparklers. Lucas looked like he was debating whether to say goodbye. So I made the decision for both of us. Come upstairs, I said. Not as a line, not as an invitation for what most people might assume. Just because I couldn't bear the thought of letting him vanish back into the night. We didn't sleep together. We didn't even kiss. We sat on the floor of my hotel room, leaning against the bed, sharing what was left of a bottle of champagne someone had left in the mini fridge. Around 3 a.m., he fell asleep with his head on my shoulder. I stayed awake a while longer, listening to the slow rhythm of his breathing, wondering how a man I just met could make me feel like I'd been waiting for him for years. When I woke up, he was gone. No note, no number, just an empty space where he'd been. For days after, I told myself it was nothing. A strange night between strangers. But that was a lie. I thought about him constantly, the shape of his smile when he forgot to be sad, the way his voice dipped when he talked about something real, and more than anything, the look in his eyes when he asked why I was talking to him. 2 weeks later, I found myself back in San Francisco for work, and somehow, without meaning to, I ended up walking past a tiny coffee shop in the Mission. He was there, behind the counter, wearing a faded gray t-shirt, hair still messy, eyes widening when he saw me. "You're late," he said, a smile tugging at his lips. For the first time in years, I didn't feel late at all. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.